get you back inside your head. Before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right. That was a little little bit on the rush job there. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at @peoples_pundit. We're going to talk about that big slick, about how out of control they big the media is. I mean, you can expect these attacks to be ramped up. You know, this I know you guys want to talk about this story in the Atlantic. Don't you think it's a little bit convenient that every time Biden goes out and makes a fool of himself, there's a story like this? So, and it's anonymously sourced and by the military and intel people, national security state, whatever you want to call it. I mean, listen, up the road in Fort Bragg was the psychological operations folks, right? You're being psyoped. You've been being psyoped for 4 years. I mean, that's really, you are. I mean, that's really it. They want to, they want this guy to lose. They want to go back to their regime changes and their CIA ops around the world. I mean, look, that's just, that's reality. That's not exactly what I do for a living and want to make this show about, but you are. So, that's just it. In Kenosha yesterday, for people who don't know, all right, and the media is like totally out of control. When Trump was visiting Kenosha, it was CNN and MSNBC. They were talking about how Trump was going there and he shouldn't go there now. Political visits will not heal this community, blah, 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 blah. He's going to go and just do what he does, just divide the country. And then when Biden went there, it was and Biden canceled his trip to Kenosha at first. It was a scheduled trip. He met with Jacobs, a rabid anti-Semite, in case you guys don't know. He's a racist. He hates white people. He hates Jews. He posts all over social media. I can't believe the Biden campaign went, but it goes to show you how much confidence they have in the big media hate machine and the media handicap to tell you the story of this election. Okay. This guy, if Trump went and met with a man who had racist tweets about white people, or in the flip side, what it would be black people, right? Or Hispanics, and racist anti-Semitic tweets about how and anti-media tweets. I mean, he essentially is one of those people who speak like the Zog, right? Like you would think Richard Spencer would speak. That's how his Facebook and social media profiles read. That you only hear the news the white Jew wants you to hear. I mean, guys, go read it. I think it was the maybe a Reagan Battalion or the Columbus Bugle who first went and pulled those tweets out. Tim Pool, a liberal journalist, by the way. I mean, now they've scared him to death. He's going to vote for Donald Trump. I was listening to his podcast yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever. He said, I'm voting for Trump. These people are crazy, which was like, what? Tim Pool, what? Anyway, he checked those tweets out. He checked those posts out. They're real. I mean, the bottom line is that the Biden campaign can get away with stuff that the Trump campaign can't. And while Trump's visit is a political visit that's going to make the community worse, Biden's, of course, was the healing hand of God coming to Kenosha, right? And it's such a freaking con. It's such a con. Anyway, Twitter would have been filled with videos about Biden making a fool of himself, because he did again make a fool of himself. The guy can't go out in public. Yeah, the one person who was straight told and blurted it in the microphone, here's what you will read to Joe Biden. I mean, it's production news enabling production campaigning. None of it is real. And I hate to tell people who just joined the political show in the era of Donald Trump, it never was real. It was always canned. Everything was production value, right? That's all it was. I mean, they had questions beforehand. They knew what the reporters were going to ask. Donald Trump came along and upended how this is done. So now you may have gotten used to somebody just walking to the crowd of reporters and taking questions, but that is not how it went before. That's not how this was a show. And it really didn't matter which party was in the White House. Of course, they were always harder on Republicans. That's true. But it didn't really matter what party was in the White House, what party was in control of the House of Representatives, what party was in control of the U.S. Senate. It was a production. Canned. Completely. And reporters are dying to get roped off again. I guess they're working, you know why? Because they want to go back to the Obama and Clinton White Houses. They hated that George W. Bush made them go to work at 9:00 in the morning. Like they actually had to start early again. Bill Clinton didn't stumble out of his bender until 10:30 in the morning. All right. I mean, really? I mean, you guys just aren't told this stuff, but the guy was lazy. He didn't work very hard at all. Barack Obama was pretty much hands off. He was the White House did not get started. In this White House, the residency, the lights go on at 4 a.m. I'm not kidding. And then he starts working early. I mean, the guy works. And because they don't want to give him a moments of peace without scrutiny, he forces them to work to do their damn job. So they want to go back to the days of getting sleep and sleeping in and having the country run on autopilot. Let the Intel state run this puppy, So the Atlantic story is clearly fake. It's going to get worse as time goes on. There is no way that one guy, and then they're like, oh, one guy is like corroborating the story. How could one guy corroborate a story that is allegedly sourced by numerous sources? Okay? You understand what I'm saying? The whole thing is anonymous. And then when they finally get pushed back and they're like, oh my God, Kellogg comes out, that staffer, the other staffer, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. It's escaping me right now, but I could probably look and find it real quick. But, of course, and then Sarah Sanders was right there. The bottom line is he's like, I just spoke to Jeffrey Goldberg and he confirmed, a senior Defense Department official I spoke with confirmed the story by Jeffrey Goldberg. How could you confirm the story by Jeffrey Goldberg if Jeffrey Goldberg himself reported that it was multiple sources giving him the story? By the way, you can't have any of their names. You're not allowed to have any of their names. Listen, you have got, in the end, to listen to people like Oliver Stone if you're on the left. I mean, I know you could hate Donald Trump, and that's fine, and you can disagree with him on policy, but don't let them make a fool of you. All right? Don't let these people who the left used to hate up until just 4 years ago. The left hated the intel community. The left hated the Pentagon. And all of us,
Trump.
and they love Donald Trump, actually. But, Keith Kellogg comes out. The story is absolutely false. Sarah Sanders says, I was standing right there for one of those conversations. This is a total farce. Jordan Karam, sorry. I didn't remember your name before, Jordan. Again, this is 100% false. I was next to POTUS the whole day. The president was greatly disappointed when told we couldn't fly there. He was incredibly eager to honor our fallen troops. I mean, don't let them make a fool of you. All right. Anytime Joe Biden goes out and speaks like this, something's going to happen.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it, more lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years.
So
we've now
took 100 years. COVID took
sorry. It is Freewheeling Friday, so we can do. Go ahead.
Let me get this right.
Yeah.
COVID took 100 years. 100 years.
And then when he was correcting himself, it was more deaths than the last 100 years. And then how many people did he say die of gun violence? 150 million, 130
150 billion.
No, it was a million. It was a million. But it was like ridiculous. 150 million. And then he initially, was it like a month or two ago, he said that, or no, it was on the debate stage in the Democratic primary.
Yes, that's what he said.
He said, right, that 150 million people had died from COVID. All right. So we lost 2/3 of our population.
That'd be interesting.
That wasn't the other day, to be fair. Yesterday, to be fair. That was 2 days ago. The other day, yesterday, in Kenosha, a girl had said, listen, you can take this index card and stick it up your butt. I'm here to ask you a real question, right? And he was like, duh, 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 and had a total glitch moment. And then also he was hit really hard over the last 2 days in general on this idea that he never said he was going to ban fracking. That is ridiculous. He actually walked up on the campaign trail. He walked up to a girl and said, look at me. Look in my eyes. Look in my eyes. I will end fossil fuels in this country. I promise you. It was like he was avenging the death of her daddy or something. He was saying it like that. Like, I make this solemn vow. Whoever murdered your daddy will pay. I mean, that's how he said it. It's ludicrous. And then, of course, on the debate stage, they said, who here will end fossil fuels? And he said he would end fossil fuel. And actually on the debate stage, they specifically said fracking. All right. So now he knows that's not very popular out in Bidentown. We're in Pennsylvania. And it's not very popular in Erie County, where he and Barack Obama carried by 16 points and Donald Trump carried by 2. And it looks like he's going to slip even further out there. All right. So now he's trying, because they're starting to get it in their heads that they really aren't making working class gains and that they have no choice but to rely on that voter that they've sowed that palpable anger we talked about the other day. But if something like Kenosha happens, those women will flee. They'll flee and there won't be enough, right? So that's how Bucks County goes from Biden +6 to dead even or something like that. That's just how it happens. I mean, those women, they don't like Donald Trump. They don't like his attitude. But they're just not going to be okay with allowing this. So back to the Atlantic story. I mean, clearly a fake story. Jeffrey Goldberg is, he is what he is. He is what he is. The Atlantic was a collusion truther organization. Just got a real quick, by the way, just got an email, just so people understand. Just got an email. It looks like an internal poll from I don't know that. Look, take them with a grain of salt here, but it looks like James just conducted a poll in Michigan. I was going to talk about some other polling, 47-46. So he's down by a point. It will be the last couple of polls do seem to show some tightening. There's a war of polls going on right now. I really did not want to be a part of this, but apparently we are. It's like, whose organization says this? Or, my polls say that. I'm going to leave it to Haley and the Trafalgar to attack the Fox News poll, but I will just simply say those polls are a joke. All right, they're a joke, and I don't know how they don't know they're a joke. Quinnipiac knows it's a joke. I mean, we're not going to go. I'm just not going to do this every year, folks. Like Quinnipiac, after 2018, I nicely asked them if they would just simply stop polling the state of Florida and some of these other states. Do yourselves a favor and maybe poll quietly one cycle to see if you care, if you really care about being accurate. If the point is to be accurate and to inform the American public about the state of the race and to give value, the value that pollsters are really supposed to do, then you would want to stop making such horrible blunders. Stop relying on Nate Silver to pretend you're accurate. I mean, the guy doesn't know anything about polling. He's never picked up. He's never even had the decency to respond to an email. This is a charade. This is a charade. They attack Trafalgar. They attack Rasmussen. They're crucifying Rasmussen for their generic ballot last time, when in fact Rasmussen state polling was actually more accurate than the rest of them, including the one that showed Bill Nelson was going to hold his seat in Florida, because at least it was a 1 or 2 point edge within the realm of realistic, outside of Quinnipiac, which said Nelson +7. Gillum +7, never got closer than 5 points. Anything in Florida more than 3 or 4 points is a crap poll. You screwed up. You screwed up. Anything in Arizona on the presidential level more than a few points, you screwed up. So the idea that I'm losing faith in the idea, Laura, like they actually want to correct. I'm losing faith in it. Why? Because I'm nice. I sit here, we discuss the substance of polling, and they just carry on. And when you try to bring something up, they'll just attack you and smear you. So that's not how it works in the professional polling industry. It only works like this in the media space. It just doesn't work any other way. It doesn't. People call you, hey, how's it going over there? Are you experiencing this? What are you doing to do this? I mean, there's cooperation, there's sharing. Once you get into the media space and the university media polls, then it runs right. It does not represent the rest of the industry, any market research of any kind. It simply doesn't. It's been perverted, like every other data science has been perverted in this country, from medical studies to public opinion polls. Empirical evidence and data have been perverted by politics, and it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, because that's what we're in right now. Looking at the Trafalgar poll in Florida, that looks about right to me, folks. Head-to-head polling. I will say this in closing before we move on. Oh, well, we got a segment. I want to go over the jobs report, but I will say this about the Trafalgar poll in closing. All right. Number one, Trafalgar was right in Florida when nobody else was. All right. And that doesn't include us. We were correct. We had Scott +1, DeSantis barely. And you know what happened there? And this is why it backs up. And you see, I admit when I did something that could have been done a little bit better. In truth, head-to-head polling in Florida is worthless. If you look at the historic voting history in Florida, and this bears it out all the time, third-party candidates or nothing burgers, people you think are nothing burgers. There are loads of designations in Florida that the media never talks about. Well, guess what? They end up getting a couple points here and there. Rick Scott versus Bill Nelson was a head-to-head, and all of those media polls were polling Bill Nelson versus Rick Scott. Then at the gubernatorial level, they were polling Andrew Gillum versus Ron DeSantis. There were 5 other people on the ballot? Or no, 6. 6 other people on the ballot. If they don't have third-party candidates in the Florida poll, Joe Jorgensen and Howie Hawkins, if they are not on, and including the words someone else or something, some other it's garbage. It's garbage. All of those they matter. They absolutely matter, and they will throw your poll off horribly. I'm running it right now just to prove a point. I'm going to show you guys the voter file, and I want to show you in Florida. Some states, guys, it's just a designation, Republican, Democrat, maybe some kind of independent party or something. In the state of Florida, look how many there are. Constitution, Democrat, Reform, Green, Independent, Libertarian, and then there's none in other. But these people run candidates. It's actually relatively easy to get on the ballot in Florida. There likely will be, but anyway, there definitely will be a Libertarian Party candidate. There definitely will be a Green Party candidate. And they definitely will take a few points. So this idea that Joe Biden's at 53, 54, it's ridiculous. Joe Biden's going to lose 2% to Howie Hawkins or Joe Jorgensen or both. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you want to go play in your Pinellas plus 14 La La Land because you allow wishful thinking to bleed into your political analysis? Knock yourself out. But on November 4th, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to do what we always do, which is come back and say, told you so. Don't listen to these people, because after a couple of election cycles, it just gets a little bit annoying when people say, oh my God, Quinnipiac has, Biden plus 52. Just, you want to choose to listen to it, knock yourself out. I'm just not going to continue to do this. I'm just not. I mean, there's just some people. You got questions? Are those all questions? We're going to do a lot of questions today. So you know what? Let's take some questions on this real quick before we go. And then after we do that little quick break, I'm thinking we will go over the jobs report and leave most of the rest of the day to questions. All right.
Be still my heart.
All right. What is this tape we're talking about, folks? What is this tape?
Which one?
I don't know. Let's see.
You see?
Watch the tape. 14-second mark. Thomas Edison, Biden bends over and farts. No, he did not. Did he really? No, he did not. Yeah, and turnout. I want to answer that. King of Jerusalem. Right now, we're at about 145. All right, that's the turnout we're looking at for 2020. All right, we're looking at upwards of 145 million. The idea there will be 165 million voters is a little bit ludicrous at the moment. Okay, let's go over how many in 2018. All right, because I just want to make this point. I get a lot of these questions. Mm-hmm. In 2018 was a big midterm election. They got out about as many people as they could get out. All right. And I'm talking about Democrats, because the general consensus is that the more people get out, the better it is for Democrats. That's not necessarily true. So in that, and this happened to them in 2004, by the way, they thought the same thing. And they did get out millions of more voters that did not vote in Bush v. Gore. And they thought because Gore won the popular vote and because, maybe Gore won Florida, there's still people who think Gore won Florida. That's ridiculous. George Bush won Florida and he won it by a bigger margin than people think. All right. But the bottom line is people assume, and they did in 2004, that would help the Democratic Party. But that partisan affiliation analysis that we ran from the voter file, the National Voter File Database, that was 188 million records. In truth, there are over 200 million records, but a lot of them are dirty rolls. Okay. So what do I mean by that? If you guys have not watched in a while, what I mean is that there are people who are dead. There are change of address flags, change of name flags. There's also duplicate households. There's millions and millions and millions and millions of records that are not individual clean voter records. Okay. It's not an individual's clean voter record. So when we ran that analysis, it immediately went into the 180 millions. And I was being generous. What do I mean by generous? We did not get strict with this, folks. That National Voter File Database analysis was 188 million records. It was still just D+4. That's it. From the polling we've done and from our own, this is a likely voter screen that we've done right now. It will tighten up. Like I said yesterday, we're looking at 145. These 165 million estimates are nuts. It was about 120 and change million in 2012. There was 137 million in 2016, which was a high turnout election. All right. In 2008. All right. Let me get exact numbers. Barack Obama got about 69.5 million votes. John McCain got just under 60 million votes. Can anybody else do that math for me real quick? That's a lot, about 130 million votes. Okay. The idea we would get 165 million voters, and I can absolutely see 145 would be a big jump, but it would not be something out of the realm when you factor population changes and changes in voter turnout rates, deaths, by the way, because you have to count that too. It would absolutely be within the realm of possibility to say 145 million, the electorate. The idea there's going to be 165 would make me extremely skeptical. 180, like some of the other ones we've heard, something's very wrong. All right. In 2014, 2018, extremely high turnout for a midterm election. We're looking at 115 million. Okay. So some of this stuff, oh my God, the return of the fly. Some of this stuff is crazy.
Evil.
It's just nuts. I mean, really not. The difference in 18, by the way, was 48.7% turnout in. Oh no, that was the other all-time. That was the all-time high, by the way. Yeah, the 48.7% turnout in 1966, I believe. All right, was the highest turnout for a midterm until 2018, which was only 49.2. All right, and compare that to 2014, which was 37%. All right, so this idea there's going to be 180 million voters. If there was, something would be very, very wrong. Very wrong. 145 is our estimate, and it's a defensible position. Defendable position. All right, so that's where we are. We were at about 135, 137 if you count all those third parties. Two-party votes were 135 million. If you add, the Libertarian and other third-party Green and other third, you're looking at about 137, I believe. That's it. All right?
I would just like to say
Go ahead.
that our guests ask questions, and I take them down in the order that they ask.
Okay.
And you're cheating and skipping people.
Okay, that's
So,
true.
I don't want to hear it. It's all his fault, not mine, guys.
Yeah. And look, perfect example, guys. Look at how many people are in the state of Florida. Look at how many records are in the state of Florida, okay? 12,757,000. All right, here we go. That is not the total. The total is actually 14 million, almost 700,000 unique individuals, which you could say are actually individuals. There's no duplicates there. 12,757,000. How many votes are there typically in the state of Florida? 9.5 million. Okay. It's really, during a presidential election, I'm talking about. All right. And go back and see if you can find some. Do we really expect Joe Biden's going to get more people out to the polls than Barack Obama as a share of the overall electorate? Because we do have population changes, of course. But 100, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh my God, these are all new young people. That's not true. That's not how it works. And in fact, in 2016, when they saw the electorate was beefing up from 2012 in certain areas, that is what made them think early in the night and the 2 weeks of early voting, all this early voting punditry that goes on, which is ridiculous. That is what made them believe that Donald Trump had no chance. I have to answer Lisa's census question. You want to talk about order? She asked that last week. Okay.
I was going to ask that
yeah,
first,
just
but
don't. Okay, cool. Don't let me forget that. All right. Yeah. So that was what led all of these geniuses to think Donald Trump had no chance. But that was not what happened. There were people who came out of the hills of northwestern North Carolina. There were people who came out of nowhere in Macomb County. There were people who came out of nowhere in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's what happened. So it doesn't necessarily even forget about who's returning ballots. That stuff is going to throw people off this year. The primaries, especially post-pandemic, they just don't bear out that ridiculous analysis. They just don't. In the end, the votes, that's not what happened. And Republicans are not going to vote the way they have voted in the past. There will absolutely be a difference in voting behavior. We already know that. We already know it. Yeah, we hit 2K. Twist, we hit 2K. Keep sharing that page. Keep sharing that page. So keep swimming. It's like a snowball. You know, it's cool. You guys, you're great. We love you for it. All right, look, I'm going to take a real quick break, and then we will answer Lisa's question. We'll go over some more polling. I really want to get through and dives into the jobs report. So let's do that first. Get it out of the way. And then we'll roll into the census question and other questions that you guys have because it's Freewheeling Friday. All right. So give me a 30-second water break. All right. Let me pull my Marco Rubio. And I'll be back. All right. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. It's Freewheeling Friday, so I'm in rare form at People's_Pundit. We're doing an informal Freewheeling Friday. That's what Fridays are supposed to be, right? That's why I'm not in a suit again. All right. And then don't forget to like the page on People's Pundit Daily on Facebook, folks. Don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook, which it runs on Facebook Live, by the way. That one never has a problem notifying people, Laura. Every time and I know because when we put it in and we schedule it, Facebook immediately dings and says, hey, Inside the Numbers will be on at this time today. All right. YouTube, they have a great stream like Facebook Live, but they're playing games with us. All right. I'm just not going to get into a waste time on the show, but they're definitely playing games with us on it. And then I would also say too that Periscope users, pick one or the other if you really like the show and you stick and watch the show. I know it's convenient on Twitter to watch it through Periscope, but Periscope's it lags and the video quality is not as good. Our broadcasting stuff, that shoots out higher definition than Periscope can even take. Facebook Live can take it, and YouTube can take it. So it's just going to be a better looking show. And then next week, you won't see my dining room chair rail trim anymore. So that's right. At some point next week, things will be different. We'll be back to an actual thing. And you don't want to miss that. You jinxed it. You don't want. I know I jinxed it, right? I think so. But once we do that, you'll want to get the best picture you can. You know. So in the end, YouTube, Facebook Live, whichever is better. All right. And of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD, which you could do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. And just to tell you guys, we are coming up on our all-time record of number of subscribers because of you. And we hit that before the 2016 election when we had the tracking poll, for crying out loud. So obviously, we love you guys. All right. So give me 30 seconds for my Marco Rubio break. All right. You're watching Inside the Numbers. Stay tuned. I'm killing that 30-second break. I'm going to get that on the break. Hey, Eric, get this link, Laura. Grab this link. Because I'm going to get that on the 2-minute break at the top of the hour. All right. I want to get that. I want to see it. All right. All right, guys. Let's go over the jobs report. Okay. And I killed that real quick because I didn't want to what's it called? I didn't want to play that song and go all the entire way. So I killed that. I tricked you guys for a hot minute, right? Yeah. Nope. All right, this jobs report was better than I expected looking at the jobless claims data. All right. I thought that maybe we'd have a bit of a hiccup this month. The media is being real funny how they're reporting this. Honestly, I can't stand Fox News anymore. I just can't stand them anymore. I'd rather watch CNN to see other different point of views. If I want other point of views, from the left, I'll get that. But I mean, honestly, Fox Business, when I want financial reporting, I still like CNBC. I know a lot of people who like Donald Trump are going to yell at me right now, but I still do like CNBC. I like it because I used to work in Wall Street, and it was just, it's like nostalgia is what I'm trying to say. So I still do like CNBC, and I like Fox Business Now. I think Fox Business is the best for actual reporting of financial news.
Yes.
Jim Cramer. What's my opinion of Jim Cramer? I know Laura gets mad. I just want to say, Jim, even though I don't know, I don't watch him like that, I'm always going to have a soft spot in my heart for Jim Cramer, because one time I had a tip on a company called Bookem. And then Jim Cramer, and I'm calling everybody's frantic. It was like a $1 stock. Calling everybody is frantically like, look, if you want to just play around with a little bit, take some risk money, let's do Bookem. All right. And I put it in there, and then what was it, like 6 o'clock at night? Jim Cramer puts a buy on Bookem. And he went to the moon. I was like, I looked like a Nostradamus, right? You remember that? I looked like Nostradamus. We were getting calls till like midnight. Oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, thank you. I'm like, I didn't really even know that was going to happen. But Kramer did that and made me look like a genius, right? Anyway, here we go. Let's take a look at the jobs report. All right. U.S. economy adds 1.4 million jobs in August. Unemployment falls to 8.4%. Now we are getting, because it is September, because we're only going to have 2 more jobs reports before the election, although millions of people will have voted by now. And we will get into some of your mail-in voting questions. All right. This had to happen earlier rather than later. I told you guys going back to the spring when they did the shutdown, and of course I opposed that, and I think I've been vindicated now by the data out of JP Morgan and other studies. There is no correlation between the slow of the spread and these strict lockdowns. The only correlation is that there were higher insured unemployment rates with the states that had the strictest lockdowns. All right. So it disproportionately hurt their citizens. You know what I mean? All right. So in the end here, let's get on with this. It had to happen early. So I was telling you in the spring, had to happen earlier, sooner rather than later for Donald Trump to really be able to get out of this. All right. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics monthly jobs report, 1.4 million headline jobs, total non-farm payrolls, which is what they call that, total non-farm payrolls. All right. And then 8.4%. Forecast for total non-farm employment range from a low of 435,000 to a high of 2 million. The consensus was 1.4 million. Forecast for the unemployment rate range from a low of 8.5 to a high of 10.4. So the consensus forecast for unemployment this time around, folks, was 9.8, meaning the unemployment number was a beat. It was a big beat. That's a precipitous fall. That is a dramatic improvement in a 1-month jobs report, especially since the labor force participation rate, which we'll get into, it's right here, it actually rose 0.3 percentage point. That, again, was like 1/10 off the consensus forecast. That's a beat. The total non-farm payroll number was right on the money. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit lower than the consensus forecast this month. I did, because last month was what, 1.8. So I just didn't think, right? I didn't think, it's around 1.8. I didn't think we were going to have back-to-back months like that, given some of the jobless claims data. Worth noting when it comes to the monthly jobs report, known as the employment situation. We talk about it. We call it the monthly jobs report or the jobs report. It is the employment situation. That's the actual name. This reporting period ends the 12th. Some of those initial jobless claims numbers that we saw that are a part of this reporting period were not great. One was pretty good. Yeah, we're happy to see one, but if you guys remember, there was that uptick during that period, and that was concerning. So this was better than expected. You got to take all of this in context, and they're just not going to do that on big media. Here is the 1-year trend for employment. As you guys know, we end this recession in May on our we believe that once they always lag. We believe once this recession is declared at an end, and we're entering a period of expansion again. We believe it will be in May. Okay. And by the way, so does the Federal Reserve. The labor force participation rate rose 0.3 to 61.7. Again, slightly beating the forecast. The low end was 61.5. The high end was 61.7. Consensus was 61.6. The less cited employment population ratio rose 1.4% to 56.5. That's good. That's a less cited figure, but I would argue equally, if not more important than labor force participation. I really would. But that's me, and everybody's different. It just doesn't ever get any headlines. All right. It is notable, as we have now said a million times, and in response to people who say, well, Trump just inherited Obama's economy. It is not true. Obama's economy was a part-time job creation economy with a chronically low labor force participation rate. For those of you who are old enough to remember, they didn't even try to argue it was the case over those 8 years. They tried to say it was because people were exiting the labor force based on age and retirement. That was and that part of that was true, but it was never the totality of the story. Never. All right. Under Donald Trump, that reversed. Labor force participation continued to rise for all ages and races as the overall employment rate continued to fall. That is a sign of a truly tight labor market, not a methodological gimmick from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is what we got out of the Obama administration. That was a gimmick. That's how it works. If mass numbers of people exit the labor force, unemployment will fall. All right? So keep that in mind. Here we go. Here's the participation rates. Let's look at the 1 year on that before we go down to wages, which is what I care about here. All right? You can see these numbers don't move drastically from 1 month to the next. That's sad, but it's true. Unemployment is better this month for whites than overall. Let's look. So overall unemployment 8.4, white unemployment 7.3, Black or African American 13%. Although that fell from, come on, let's get the other one here. That fell 1.6% this month. That's a nice decline. Everybody was a nice drop. Whites were 9.2. Hispanic, so Latino, was 12.9 last month. This month, 10.5. Asians, 12%. This month, 10.7. That's something because Asians tend to have a lower unemployment rate than whites, and which they don't at the current moment. And they tend also to have higher participation rates than other demographic groups. All right, so let's actually look at that. Here we have the total 61.7. White was 61.8. Look at Asians, 63.8. Hispanics, 65.3. And Black or African American, 60.4. It is true that labor force participation among African Americans lag. That is also, by the way, another reason why it is not true that Trump inherited the Obama economy. No group suffered more for labor force participation than Black African American workers. Black and or African American. I'm doing it like the slash. Black African American. Census, Bureau of Labor Statistics, they all do it. All right. So no group suffered more under Obama with labor force participation problems than Black or African American workers in this country, or not even workers, because these are the people who are working. But the group that suffered the most out of anybody was them. And under Donald Trump, that trend arrested. Their labor force participation rates began to rise as their unemployment rates fell. That is, again, not a gimmick. That is a real labor market tightening and causing upward pressure on wages, which is what we're going to get to next. And by the way, the jobless claims data under Trump and that insured unemployment rate that I'm so obsessed with, that's why I am obsessed with it, because that backs up whether or not you're looking at a truly tight labor market. That critical threshold weekly is usually around 300. Until the pandemic, it was always in the low twos. Under Barack Obama, we were constantly hitting that threshold. A good month was the high twos. That was a good month. And we would constantly pop above it. And then it would come down, pop above, and then it would come down, pop above, then it would come down. And that's why insured unemployment could never get to the low ones like that until the Trump administration. And then it did. And it fell to an all-time low, 1.1. It stayed at 1.2 since the end of 2018. And the only time it ever left 1.2 was to go back down to the all-time low. And then the next week, it would pop back up. That is a tight labor market. And that is why there was no wage growth under Barack Obama. None. Because it wasn't real. It wasn't a real tight labor market. It was faux. It was fake. It was a gimmick. And if it is a gimmick, there's no upward pressure on wages. Now, we got upward pressure on wages in the third quarter of 2018. We saw wage growth at or above 3% for the first time since the Great Recession. And that continued for almost 2 years consecutively. Every month we would report it. Wages at or above 3% for the 10th consecutive month, for the 11th, for the 12th, for the 13th. We were at like the 18th or 19th consecutive month until the pandemic. And then we had 1 month where there was a problem. All right. And let's get into wages. The large employment fluctuations over the past several months, particularly in industries with lower paid employees, right? So when the pandemic came, they closed down a bunch of like leisure and hospitality industry. The industry got hit hard, and those jobs are the ones that got hit. So they were taken out of the labor force. That caused a fake jump in the wage growth, the 12-month wage growth. And then as they re-entered, we got 1 month where it dipped because they disproportionately jumped back into the labor force. And that is what ended the consecutive 3% or more wage growth under Donald Trump. All right, so that distorted recent trends in average hourly earnings, otherwise known colloquially as wages. Nevertheless, workers' wages rose at a faster pace than supervisory workers in August, a years-long trend under the current administration. It has been a years-long trend under Donald Trump that wages for working Americans are rising faster than wages for their bosses. Wasn't that the goal? To close the wage gap?
No.
Wasn't that?
Of course not. Because now then they have no argument.
How many years did we hear about the wage gap? How many years? The wage gap was closing, and you would think that his detractors would be thrilled. You would think so, but I guess not. In August, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls rose by 11 cents to $29.47. But average hourly earnings of private sector production and non-supervisory employees increased by 18 cents. You get that? Everybody's gain was 11 cents, but the workers' gain was 18 cents. And again, that followed a decrease of 10 cents in the prior month because of that distortion in people coming and going in the labor market the way we have. 1 year trend. Let's look at this. All right. Again, had hovered above. I would have to go back to, I know it's the third quarter of 2018. I just don't know what month it is. We'd have to go back to 2018 to show how many consecutive months there was 3% or more. Look under Barack Obama. Look at that. That's butt. That's butt. That is ugly wage growth. And by the way, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, they reported because they have the personal income report, personal income and outlays. Their report basically was showing that because they do an annual review, the last 2 years of the Obama administration, personal income didn't even gain as much as they thought. It was actually more horrendous than we initially thought. All right. Anyway, so we had this 1 month where during the pandemic, 2020, May of 2020, we saw that -1. That's the 12-month. But these are distortions. It is not fair to say. Just like it's not fair to credit, to credit him with this decline. It's not fair to credit him with this upward increase that shot to 4.8%. Because what we saw here, like I said before, were a bunch of leisure and hospitality workers exiting the labor force. So it created artificial spikes in the 12-month wage gain. So I would love to say that wages grew in April 2020 by almost 5%. I would love to say that, but it wouldn't really be accurate. All right. So then we saw this -1. Then we popped up to 4.9 as they came back, which is a little bit weird. So, of course, we don't have all those jobs back, but we did get a lot back in that report in June, and we still saw 4.9, which shows that some businesses obviously have to make the position more attractive to get some of these workers back. All right. And then in July, 4.8, 4.7. So now we're going back down to reality, but we're not going back down quick and erratically. So it does show that there's still upward pressure. That's good. That's a good sign. You don't want it to spike like that for some artificial reason and then to hold there. It would tell you more that the problem is still remaining. When you see it trickle down back, to revert closer to where it was before in the threes, 3.1, 3.4 was, I think, the highest we'd gotten to. That should tell you that we're little by little chipping away at that problem. And we're getting back closer to the labor market, what it looked like before. All right. Forecast for the 12-month wage growth range from a low of 4.2 to a high of 4.6. The consensus was 4.6. So wage growth was a beat at 4.7 in August. The change in total non-farm payroll employment for June was revised down by 10,000 from 4,791,000 to 4,781,000, while the change for July was revised down from 29. I mean, considering such huge numbers, overall the combined was 39,000 less jobs than we thought. Excuse me. When you're talking about 5 million jobs almost 1 month and almost 2 million the next month, and now we're looking again at 1.8. These revisions I don't really take to be that big of a deal. It's a revision. It's a downward revision of 39,000 jobs. We're talking about 7 million almost people. So, I mean, they were pretty close. I'm more curious to see what this period is because, again, the employment situation, the monthly jobs report, the reporting period is the 12th. So even what we got from the initial lagging week in jobless claims yesterday is not really in this report. The dive into the 800,000, it's not in this report. The dive in insured unemployment, it's not in this report. They'll revise it later, and whatever reporting period wasn't up until the 12th, that'll go in. All right? So that's the employment situation report. That is the most thorough way that I can think of to explain this report to you. Because some of the stuff I've been seeing from media in the last couple of days, I just expected that they would completely distort how this report should be presented, So I'm not wrong either, just from what I could, The Fraternal Order of Police endorses Donald Trump, I see. That kind of is a big deal, all right? For those of you, who don't know, the police unions did start to break off in 2016 a little bit, but for the most part, unions stayed, even though Donald Trump carried the union vote. The unions tend to stay. The bosses, those endorsements tend to stay with the traditional route of the Democratic Party. And that is this year not happening to the same degree that it even happened in 2016. I think the Fraternal Order of Police, though, Laura, has a history of bipartisan endorsements. I think so. I'm not sure. But anyway, back to that. Take that with a grain with the initial jobless claims number that we got last time. I want to see the revisions. But all in all, good report, solid report, the kind of report Donald Trump needs if he doesn't want to get blown away. All right? That's it. Because if this economy was not returning quick enough, he was going to lose. That is what history tells us. And for all of those who supported the shutdown foolishly, they call themselves Donald Trump supporters. Well, you have some splaining to do. You were wrong. And one area of the economy that was not bouncing back as quickly as he really needed it to bounce back was the labor market. That's just true. So it's good to see this 1.4 this month, because the difference between 1.8 and 1.4, guys, is not that bad. I would like to see more. I really would. I would like to see this keep going. But at least it's headed in the right direction. Unemployment to 8.4% it's big. I mean, remember where we were, folks. Remember where we were. So his argument is, yeah, we had a ridiculously high 14.7% unemployment rate. We're already back down in the 8s. Barack Obama, he had a horrible time explaining this. He got that last jobs report that helped him quite a bit, even though it was totally fraudulent. It helped him quite a bit. And the one for October should be the same direction, especially since jobless claim. Right. Well, especially since jobless claims seem to, that hiccup, that jump, that brief, it doesn't seem like it's going to keep going. All right. So this is good. You would have to go back to the 80s to find numbers anywhere close to this. It just doesn't happen. So we're in uncharted territory, but it needed to be like this. It really did. And I would love to see, because that insured unemployment rate lags so badly. The initial jobless claims report, that headline lags a week. So the insured unemployment lags too. I would love to see that number come down before we get our next jobs report. Because if we did, it would tell me, oh my God, we could go to the 7s, or maybe, who knows? I don't want to say never, but an incumbent really needs to be closer to 5. I know this is a historical situation, but it really needs to be closer to 5. All right. But I would like to see it, because it would tell me the labor market's coming back. All right. And everyone should celebrate the damn labor market. I don't get putting this, I don't get this thing in modern politics, like, the sphere. I don't get this thing of putting politics over prosperity. I just don't get it, because really the goal of both should be prosperity, right?
Yes.
It should be, but it's clearly, that's clearly not true, Laura.
Because then prosperity brings the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly. People don't seem to, everyone was telling, exactly, Laura.
Right.
So people were like, oh, what do you just care about money during the shutdown? You don't care about all these deaths from COVID. It was never a money versus health argument. It was always a health versus health argument. You can't listen, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it sure does help. You can't be happy if you're constantly worrying about your basic needs.
Yes. And
does anybody know the hierarchy needs Abraham Maslow?
It also helps you help others prosper.
That's right, Laura. And that is what our founders pursued wealth for. It was not for, like Max Weber said, it was not for mammonism. It was not for greed. It was not for wealth. Was not the pursuit of wealth for as a means to, that was not the end. That was not the point.
Once you
the
succeeded,
point
you
was
didn't stop.
to not be a burden on your society and your community. And then ultimately they were in the pursuit of virtue. That's what they were pursuing. And that just helped them in that pursuit, because you weren't a burden on society and you could help others who deserved, of course, help, right? Mm-hmm. So Benjamin Franklin said, idle hands do the devil's work. That is the Protestant ethic 101. You're not supposed to be, pursuing money for the sake of money. They viewed it as evil. They viewed laziness as evil. An emotion, it's a habit of the devil. You're supposed to be self-sufficient, and you're supposed to get to a place where you could help others become self-sufficient. And not, like I said, not like money buys everything, but you can't really work on you as a person if you're constantly worried about where your next meal is coming from. Yeah, you just can't. It's reality.
In all honesty, what King of Jerusalem said is very true. The Democrats don't want you to prosper, because if you are prosperous, you no longer need all their assistance, and then they have no platform.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Oh, I'm not sure it was. And I see the comment from, and I guess you could say that's true, of course. But I'm just saying it wasn't always like that.
No, it wasn't.
Like, this is a modern American
Way
two-party.
back,
Yeah,
everybody cared about the pursuit of
absolutely. Whether you were
it
a
was
Bourbon
just-
Democrat, which looks more like a Republican, whether you were a going way back, Federalist.
happiness.
Yeah, I mean, or a Republican, because Jefferson was a Jeffersonian Republicans, right?
Jeffersonians. Yeah.
But then later that all fell away. And then even when it was just Democrat, Republican, it was not like this in the
But
beginning,
even
Laura.
liberals from
Right.
that time frame would be rolling. They're rolling in their grave
Absolutely.
right now at the liberals this day and age.
Prosperity was always the goal first. It was. And again, it's important to remember, what the problem is? Nobody reads the Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism anymore. Nobody reads it anymore. It's probably the most important book for American history. It's not just history, it's economics, and he was a social scientist. It is probably one of, if not the most important books, and we never read it.
Well, misinformation is
When
the best way to keep control over your people.
When I was an undergrad, we spent
You went
3
head to
days.
head.
3 days on the Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism.
Remember that?
Maybe 2 days. Yeah, I remember.
Mhm.
Maybe we spent 2 or 3 days on that. And we spent a week. By the way, that book is about 300 pages. And we spent I'm probably being generous, closer to 2 days on Max's seminal work. And we spent a week on a 65-page pamphlet written by Karl Marx. So that really goes to show you everything. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know.
You need to know.
Right? And by the way, you don't hear about it. If you only spend 2 days on a book like that, you will never hear about how Benjamin Franklin developed the Franklin stove to stop towns from burning, homes from burning, because the stove before the Franklin stove was dangerous. And there's letters that, the governor was telling him, you can make a pretty penny on this. And he said, no, people are dying. I'm giving this away for free. The
You don't hear
lightning
that.
rod. Okay. The lightning rod. Why did he do that? Because Franklin was already wealthy from the printing press, his press business. He didn't need it. He viewed it as he didn't want to. Yeah. When he writes back to the governor, he says, listen, I don't want to die, and go to God and say, and have to justify why I was making money on a life-saving invention. All right. I'm good. I got my wallet's fat enough in 1700 speak. My wallet's fat enough. I'm giving it away because it's my duty. That's it. And that's all. And he did. He said, you should patent it. He told him. And he said, no, I'm not doing it. All right, let's take a quick 2-minute break. All right. And when we come back, we'll answer questions. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. Don't forget to like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. Not follow, like. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Hit that little notification bell to let you know when we go live. All right. Ultimately, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD. You can do so by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. You'll get all those cool little charts, get some data for your dollar. ppdnews.us/subscribe. We can't promise you we'll cover everything. We can just promise you that what we do cover, we'll cover better than anybody else. All right. All right. Give us 2 minutes. Here's Bad Habit by the Grammy considered Bowen Band.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun? I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back. All right, let's just do the question and answer portion here. Okay, let's do that first. All right. Let me just, it really would have been a 50. Let me answer this question too. Laura's going to get mad. Ask your first question and then I'll answer the question that somebody asked me that I'm going to respond to on email. Okay. All right. But I'll do that now while you're asking this other question. And then I'll kind of work this in because I've gotten this over the course of a couple of days, and it has to do with the difference in the first and second wave that we did with the polling. Okay, but let's get there. Go ahead, you first.
Right, so the first question is from Lisa, and that's her census question. And then she also had a question a while back about which states are mail-in ballot states. She wanted to know, and I think that covers you, Lisa.
All right, let's do the census first. Okay. First, the census is, because this is what happened for background for people. So she got a knock on the door and the census person wanted to know. First of all, can you just, I'm going to ask Lisa this question. I'll continue my answer, but let me know if Lisa responds. Okay. They didn't bring up voting at all, right? Or a ballot or requesting ballots or anything like that. Correct. Let me just say that. All right. It just had to do with the census, right? All right. So she got a knock on the door. That's the question, Lisa. Laura will grab your response. But she got a knock on the door. It was the census person. I guess her boyfriend talked to him. She was like skeptical, didn't want to talk to anybody. And I can understand why. In truth, you do want to participate in the census, folks, no matter what side of the aisle you come from. You want to make sure, for one, the census is accurate. All right. And number two, you don't want to not talk to them out of suspicion, because then you will be underrepresented in their work. It won't be accurate. And you'll be underrepresented. The census is important because the census determines population, which then determines congressional representation in the House of Representatives, how many seats how many districts each state will get, which is obviously for every district, there's a seat. Okay. Also, that when the Congress goes to write legislation and spending for appropriations bills, government spending is also influenced by census, all right? Because it's influenced by population. And of course, what else is influenced by population? The number of electoral votes that each state gets in the Electoral College for the presidential election. So it is very important that the census is right. It is very important everyone participates, or at least as many as is possible. And then that is why, for so long, and let me pull up, we did a story, Laura, on PPD. I'd like to pull it up just to get it.
Just while you're doing that, so far, she said she wasn't there for the beginning towards the end, but they came again yesterday.
So it's very, very possible, by the way, that they will bring up census issues, will bring up, the person who comes to your door will bring up voting. Why? Because they work for the government and they're leftists. All right. Everybody in the government, it's not everyone, but government positions are dominated by leftists. All right. So it wouldn't shock me, although it's very unprofessional. It wouldn't shock me if a government worker, like somebody who works for the census, starts talking, getting out of line and talking about politics. It just wouldn't shock me at all. Why? Because there's no one that hasn't been tarnished by this. Ask Laura. I went to a veterans appointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get medical care. And I'm not even a big name person, but she knew what I did and who I was. And we spent the whole damn hour talking about how much she hates Donald Trump. I filed a complaint against her. Like, I didn't get any care. All she wanted to do was talk about what my polling showed and whether or not Donald Trump would lose. I'm not kidding. She liked Elizabeth Warren, but didn't think Warren could beat Donald Trump. She thought Bernie Sanders was a little bit to the left for her, but she still would have voted for Bernie over Trump. But she didn't want Bernie to get the nomination because she knew from the media, of course, CNN and MSNBC told her that Bernie can't beat Donald Trump. Oh my God, it's got to be Joe Biden. But Joe Biden's an idiot. He's totally senile. He's totally senile. You think he can even make it through a campaign? He may break down. Did you see his eye pop on live camera? It's ridiculous. Could you imagine if he was debating that idiot Donald Trump and his eye vessel, but a blood vessel in his eye popped on live camera? I'm like, holy crap. I got up and I walked away. After 45 minutes, it was supposed to be an hour appointment. I got up and walked away and filed a complaint. So there's like nowhere, no one. And the government is overwhelmingly dominated by liberals, by leftists, by Democrats. So I wouldn't be surprised if a census taker, did that, but they're not supposed to. And they're just supposed to do what they're supposed to do. Now, this is why the controversy, you think about what I just told you, what the census does. That's why the controversy over the Supreme Court hearing the census case and Donald Trump's decision to put the census back, to exclude illegal residents, some non-legal residents, whatever you want to call them, people living in the United States illegally, should not, in my view, be on the census. They should not have any bearing to how we govern ourselves. They are not citizens. And if it has nothing to do with left, right, or anything else, American citizenship is supposed to be a gift. It's supposed to be valuable. It's supposed to be special. And when you dilute it like that, you devalue it. So people who are here illegally without your consent, without the consent of the voter, because the government's been doing this, and we started talking about this yesterday. The government's been doing this for years. Arizonians never consented to have their state flooded with 4 generations of illegal immigration, which is now causing the state to be competitive. Arizona would never be competitive if it wasn't for illegal immigration. Nevada, right, would never be a blue state now, or a purple-blue state if it wasn't for illegal immigration. California would be a red state still to this day. Ronald Reagan carried it twice. Go look at Bill Clinton's margins in the 90s. Not solid. George W. Bush, he didn't lose the state of California 2-1 like this. California now, people born in California every year, new illegal aliens give birth to more children in the state of California who then become U.S. citizens because we have not done that yet. Subject to the jurisdiction of is conveniently left out in what makes a citizen who is born here. That's why diplomats, illegal aliens. I mean, Juan's parents were both permanent legal residents. So that court decision doesn't hold water with what the left's argument is. But we have used it without the Supreme Court ruling on it. We have used it for almost 100 years to justify this. Before that, the census for 150 years, more than 150 years, actually 200. They just stopped asking citizenship about 50 years ago. That's it. Now the left wants you to believe it's illegal to ask the citizenship question on the census. The Supreme Court, because Roberts is a coward, the Supreme Court, and because Roberts is a partisan hack, he is not a traditional Republican. He's like your very typical Bushy kind of Republican, where really the status quo matters more than their ideology, and that's why they can't stand Donald Trump. All right, he's a club guy. Roberts is the perfect example of what happens when you go to Washington, D.C. And people are like, and I'm not going to mention the name, but somebody specific on Twitter was like, he spent his entire career in D.C. He was raised in the Midwest. He went to a Roman Catholic school. I mean, do your homework. All right. Anyway, but in the end, the bottom line is they shirked having to answer this question for good, because what they said was, yeah, I mean, I guess he could put it on the census, but they didn't go about it the right way, and we don't like how they went about it. So, you'll have to go back. It was an administrative issue. They did the same thing with DACA, which was a horrible decision, not because of the actual law, but because they made it more likely that future presidents would write executive orders they damn well knew were not constitutional, because the Supreme Court has now ruled the process by which the next president must go to rescind those orders is ridiculous. So they hurt the separation of powers badly with that ruling. All right, just to give you guys some heads up. All right, that is when the Supreme Court ruled on it. They sent it back to the lower court. They bucked that. All right, they basically said, quote, "We do not hold that the agency decision here was substantively invalid." In other words, yeah, Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Department, the president, they could put it on there if they wanted, but agencies must pursue their goals reasonably, whatever the hell that means. Reasoned decision-making under the Administrative Procedure Act calls for an explanation for agency action. What was provided here was more of a distraction. Guys, the U.S. asked the citizenship question. Here it is, from 1820 to 1950. The citizenship question would be the same as the one posed as the annual American Community Survey, which is called the ACS. The census does annually. They do the census, of course, every 10 years, but they do the ACS, which is a smaller based census. It is a census. It's just a smaller sample one. The U.S. Commerce Department uses the 10-year questionnaire to collect population data. The data is used to determine, like I said before, representation in the U.S. House of Representatives, the number of electoral votes each state will have in the Electoral College, and to allocate roughly $600 billion that is spent by the federal government every year. The only major difference between the census and the ACS is the sample size. The ACS being a much smaller percentage of households than the actual census. Worth noting, 2/3 of American adults support the government asking a citizenship question on the U.S. Census. Only 23% disagree, and 11% are undecided in a recent survey. An overwhelming majority at 89% think it's important for the government to get an accurate count of the U.S. population as possible in the U.S. Census. 67% say it's very important. I mean, any more questions? That's the administrative swamp for you. That's the administrative swamp. All right. So they use basically a stupid little loophole, it wasn't even. This was your very textbook cowardly decision. But it was a 9-0 decision, by the way. It just wasn't. There were some, like Alito and others, so it was a little bit different. But overall, they didn't want to have to do anything with it, so they kicked it back to the lower court. And by the time Trump's administration would have been able to go through it again, they never would have made it on time. So that's how we got here. So yes, illegal immigrants will have an impact on the election. And that's why I say all the time, the bottom line is foreign interference in our elections occurs every 2 and every 4 years. Every damn election. It does. All right, go ahead. You're next.
You didn't answer the second half of.
Oh, what's the second half?
Mail-in ballots. Where are they? Which states?
Oh, well, basically every state is going to have a mail-in ballot vote. Let me see if I can give you some proportions. I saw some numbers the other day. Let me give you proportions on how many people will vote like that in each state. All right, here we go. Here's the Ballotpedia, which is better than the New York Times. The New York Times sucks. Sorry. Nothing. You can't just ever get any numbers from the New York Times anymore. You got to get their opinion on it. All right. So all mail elections are, by the way, we have them already. Colorado is an all mail election. All right. Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, Washington, they are primarily conducted. So now this time, really, we're going to have, those are existings. In the automatic, I think maybe what they're saying, Laura, is that which states will be automatic, right? Because we already have 5 states that do that. So let me just give them a bunch of information. California, Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Idaho, Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wisconsin are automatic applications. All right? Is that good enough?
Good. Thank you. So, Bill Moran, he emailed me. Can you go deeper into the impact of students not being on campus to blue states? Larry thinks with no get out the vote that they won't vote near the level they do. Plus, it is theorized up to 2 million people have fled the city for other states. Will that possibly make New York more red,
No.
given most of the state is ruby? I think that's
Yeah. I mean, look,
wishful.
guys,
And
California.
then-
Wait, do one at a time.
Well,
New
it's
York is
still-
not going to go red. It's not. I mean, let's just end that ridiculous concept now. I have even seen some polling. I get it. He's doing better in some Long Island areas. Could there be some areas that were for Hillary Clinton that flipped to Donald Trump? Yeah, sure. But the state of New York has millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of voters in it. And unfortunately, the data suggests that the people who flee these areas that they destroy go to your neighborhoods and then vote the way they've been voting anyway. That's just sad, but true. All right. So it's not going to happen. New York will be blue.
And
It may be
then
less though.
What he was also going on about is that it's theorized that New York liberals are moving to Florida in droves. Will that impact the state and make it more purple?
The state is purple. I would say though, it probably is like pink actually. And it's because it's such a big state that you really need to know a lot about that state, how each individual, Florida is 4 states minimum, maybe even 5, depending on how you want to do it. But the bottom line is demographic changes don't occur in a vacuum. So most of the people that have left the north to go to Florida are not liberal. In fact, okay, they're not. Most people leave there and go and get more Republican as time goes on. And then there are more demographics going into Florida where it throws off those changes too. You have the new Venezuelan population, which is going to make a bigger impact than people realize. You also have to take into consideration that, for instance, Hispanics. Here's the deal with Florida and what keeps it, even though it's so diverse, here is what keeps it repeatedly voting, with the exception of Barack Obama, for Republicans at the statewide level. Every demographic group almost that is favorable to Democrats is more conservative and or Republican in Florida than the nation as a whole. That's true of Hispanics. That's true of women. That's true of Black voters. And that's true of younger voters. So even voters, like for instance, Blacks, they may vote, Black voters may vote, single digits for a Republican nationally, maybe 6%. Mitt Romney was abysmal, but he still did better among Black voters in Florida. Same thing with Donald Trump. Maybe he got 8% nationally. He got 12% in Florida. And I know what other people say, but you just do the math. The exit polls don't add up. All right. And the electorate was not 62% or 60% white. It was 66% white. All right. Women. People are like, wow, my God, there's such a big gender gap. Women in Florida are more conservative than women in the rest of the country. Florida can be 55-45 all the time. And yet Democrats keep losing elections there. How could that possibly be? Hispanics will not break 70-30 for Joe Biden in Florida. It won't happen. There are too many conservative, why? Because you have Cubans, now you have Venezuelans. They always helped to drive up that margin to keep them from getting a bloodbath among Hispanics like you see rest of the nation. Donald Trump got 27% of the vote nationwide, Hispanics. He was much higher in the state of Florida. Now, it's also the case that Hispanics are actually Puerto Ricans and working Mexicans that are doing this. They're driving up the overall those who will identify as being conservative and or Republican. So that is what keeps Florida light pink. And the polls in Florida suck. They're not good because you cannot get 600, 400 responses and think you're going to know, forget about just regular demographic groups. There has to be detailed questions for most of those groups, and getting 13 responses for each is not enough. All right? It's just not. And that's why overall, you look at the voter registration trends, they are bad for Democrats. And we keep the media is always 2 to 3, maybe even 4 cycles behind on which counties will be the ones that call the election. The most recent one we talked about earlier in the week. Pinellas County, of course, is still a battleground. And I actually think Trump will flip it back. I do. But Ron DeSantis lost it in 2018. He still carried the state. Why? Because he got stronger and higher percentages elsewhere. Collier County, the white vote went gangbuster for him. Republicans went nuts for him. He did better along the I-4 corridor with Hispanics. So did Rick Scott. Then what's his name? Then in presidential races, or what Rick Scott had done in his gubernatorial races. Why? They're getting more conservative. They get older. They tend to get more conservative. All right. It's too complicated for most of these people. Florida, they really have come to that conclusion. It's too complicated of a state. They don't get it. They just don't get it. All right. Let's get the next one here.
All right. So Evan Bliss wants to know, how can Trump win if the 2016 bases are holding the same and Trump is losing new voters and 2016 third-party voters by a 2-to-1 margin?
All right. 2016, the electorate that the electorate that elected Donald Trump in 2016 is not this, or the coalition is the better way to put it, is not the same as the coalition that is supporting him in 2020. Some people he's lost, some people he has gained. It will be a different election. It will. And sometimes the media has a habit of focusing on certain groups that they want to focus on, and they lose sight of the left hook. They have a blind spot, and they never realize it until it hits them in the chin. Oh my God, how did I miss that? That is what happens to them. It's a reoccurring theme with these people. There are alignments going on right now. They're very difficult to get a hold of. And the drop-off, by the way, with the young voters, this ties into it. That is why they want this kind of quasi-election. For those who don't know politics like on the ground, young voters have to be coerced into voting. If they're not on college campuses, all right? And there's not tables out there in the common areas as they walk by from one class to the other, they won't grab their hand and say, hey, did you vote today? Come on, let's go. That's why they need it mailed onto their lap. That's why they need ballot harvesters, whether we call them ballot harvesters or we call them something else, their campaign or political operatives. They will do that, even if ballot harvesting is illegal in those states. They'll call it something else, folks. They'll do what they got to do. And because young voters tend not to vote without being or having their hand held. So that's why they want all of these alternative ways to do so. And that's what here's the problem. There was no big surge in voter registration among this group. There was no big surge in primary voting among this group. So I hear all these people requested ballots. A lot of these states, I'm even hearing, Laura, it's ridiculous. Those ballots are going out anyway. I don't know what they're talking about. All right. And all of the requests doesn't matter. A request does not matter. A response is what matters. All right. And then even still, it could be skewed disproportionately to look younger because older voters are less likely to do so. Or not older, but maybe 30 to 44, 45 to 65. Feel me? You know what I mean? So some of this really, even Bernie didn't. That's why Bernie lost, though, this time. He didn't even get them to the polls like that. Outside of Iowa, where he had some younger, more diverse satellite caucus sites, he pushed for them hard. They really came through for him. That's what got him, the win in Iowa. They screwed him from the beginning. Pete Buttigieg did not win the Iowa caucuses. Bernie Sanders won the Iowa caucuses. And by the way, we went through all sorts of caucus data. I gave it to them. I gave the results to them. There were tabulations that were ridiculous. They were giving either Buttigieg or Klobuchar his state delegate equivalents. I don't know how you could have done this math incorrectly. These were areas where Bernie overwhelmingly won. All right. So they screwed Bernie bad. All right. And I'll also say this. In New Hampshire, there were some younger voters that came out and helped him in New Hampshire, but he still underperformed. And he underperformed because the numbers among those voters that we're all hearing about now were in the dookie. That it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. So I don't know where they're coming out. In North Carolina, by the way, Democrats will always outpace Republicans in early voting. It's always going to happen. And the requests mean nothing. Even the early vote, the returns will mean nothing. Democrats don't change their registration in North Carolina. They just don't. There are tons of Democrats on a presidential level who are going to vote for Donald Trump. They never get it through their heads. I got to repeat this every damn cycle. It does not matter. Donald Trump is favored in North Carolina. And then on election day, Republicans always wait in North Carolina to come out en masse on election day. And they will overtake them. Mark my words, folks. All right? Mark my words. And this time it's going to be skewed. That supposed advantage that Democrats have will be skewed drastically more. Because we have a lot of Republicans that are, the president has had a lot to do with this. They're a lot more skeptical. Yesterday, Donald Trump sent out a thread. That is what you should do if you are concerned about what will happen with your vote, if you mail in your vote. But he should have done that to begin with, which is what set me off on my series. He was saying things incorrectly. So you can early vote, guys, and you can vote by mail if you want. You just better make sure that I would personally make sure that it's there. All right? And that's the way. It's
better to vote in person.
He sent it. Yeah, but then you listen. If you wait to vote in person, then you will deal with these media headlines about Democrat requests outpacing Republicans by so much. There have been states where this has happened. You can vote and then still make sure that your ballot is going to be counted. All right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go find it on his Twitter thread right now. You'll see what I'm talking about. That is what he should have been saying all along. All along. But by the way, remember the disparity in the request in Florida. Did that hold up? Nope. What about Pennsylvania? Nope. All right. And those were not even competitive primaries. They weren't even competitive. Yet all those Republicans still went out on election day and voted. Don't read into the early vote tea, folks, or the absentee vote. Don't. It'll be distorted badly this year.
All right. The last man wants to know, will this phony story hurt Trump in Arizona?
No.
All right. Irish wants to know, what was Biden doing yesterday with they are going to shoot me thing?
Oh, with you're talking about with if he was to answer questions in the other way. Is that what he's talking about?
She.
Or she? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't follow everything he does, but talking about taking the question that he wasn't supposed to take. Is that it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that just goes to show you how badly Joe Biden is a handled candidate. Joe Biden, I thought in 2016, Hillary Clinton was a overtly handled person. And what I mean by that is they don't say or do anything without approval. They just can't and don't. All right. In 2012, Barack Obama was not he would listen to them, but he would go out, he would do what he wanted, and he would say he kind of liked interacting with people, and he would take those things. Hillary Clinton was less so. She liked to be more scripted. She roped off reporters. I mean, that's the kind of campaign she was. Joe Biden is the most handled person, campaign candidate that I have seen probably forever, ever. So he is way worse than Hillary Clinton. That's what that means. So that would be an example of that. And when you hear Joe Biden make comments like that, which is not the first time he's made a comment like that, That's what it is. He's constantly given what to say, what to do, who to ask, who to respond to. I mean, it's production campaigning, the worst kind. The worst kind. It is Orwellian as hell. It is. And by the way, guys, this is the way it was before Donald J. Trump came on the scene. Like him, love him, or hate him. You got to give it to him that he turned politics into something completely different. Completely different. All right? All right, go ahead.
All right. Rico wants to know, he has a Minnesota question. What does swinging the Iron Range 3/4 of the counties do to the overall numbers for the state? In other words, are there enough voters here to swing the state to Trump?
That's a great question. So we could do that more. I'm getting tired of that. We could do that in another episode next week if you want. Let's talk about, you know what? I'm going to answer your question. I'm not going to leave you hanging here, but let's talk next week about what it would mean to swing Minnesota. All right. I did do in the Minnesota voter analysis. I did do a pretty in-depth look at it, but we can return to it if you want, just to show you what it would mean. He would still need to perform decent, and I would argue better than he did in 2016 in the Twin City burbs, because there are so many votes there. Somebody needs me to hand them some money. All right, hang on one second. That's what that was. There you go. Yep, I know what it is. He's doing the back. Hold on one second, folks. Oh my goodness. Here's to hoping somebody didn't run over the wire. And he couldn't have, because then we'd be gone right now. So all this construction is going on over here, and I'm worried about people running and stuff. You'd be gone. I'd be gone if he did. So I guess I just heard it engage, Laura, so I hope you're right. All right. So we'll go over it in more detail next week. But yes, the Iron Range could definitely put him in striking distance, but he couldn't still, though. He could not get blown away in the burbs, win the Iron Range, and win the state. He needs to hold those levels. If not, I mean, really, I would say he needs to improve a little bit. Not by much, but a little bit. So one of the recent polls I saw, he was in the low 50s again, which is now the third time I've seen this in a poll. We're getting into the Rust Belt today. As soon as I get off with you, I'm going to meet with them. I have a meeting. We're going to talk about this questionnaire. They want to tweak it because it is the Rust Belt. That's cool with me. I think we should probably tweak it a little bit, although I'd like to keep the questionnaire as close to the national one as possible. I understand, though, there's things that should be asked in the Rust Belt that maybe don't make sense in national polling. So we'll find out for myself where he is in the Twin City suburbs. I will find out myself. But if he is in the low 50s in the Twin City suburbs, last night, the 7th Iron Range Democratic mayor came out and endorsed Donald Trump. That crap is going to matter. Those are the locals. If you think that, if the media, you, anybody, think that's not going to matter, those are people who, Amy, that's who you needed to worry about, because those are the people like Amy Klobuchar going up there and going to visit could really make a difference with. But it won't now. It won't matter. Amy Klobuchar is not, they're not going to care because of what I told you before. They have already a skepticism toward the national party. So if he's at like 52 in the Twin City suburbs, and then he flips 2, and Barnes too, we talk about this a lot. Barnes thinks Trump's going to get 3 out of 4 of those Iron Range counties he didn't get before. All right. I think it's almost a given he's going to get 2. All right. If he's at like 52 in the Twin City burbs and takes 2 of those Iron Range counties, he's going to take the state of Minnesota. All right. Regardless of what polling says, he's going to. Unless Biden plucks off some of those more rural ones in the West. You know what? Here we go. Well, this is what I do. Look at this, right? So unless Biden plucks off some of these rural ones in the West that are light pink, and even in the South too, Biden would have a decent chance plucking off something like, I can't do it. I'm going to get the weatherman thing correctly. Biden would have a better chance performing around here in this southeastern corner. Maybe he could take a few of those Clinton did as compared to some of the other Democrats. She plucked that one off. But the burbs are over there in light blue. Oh my God, this is so difficult. All right. That's where everybody really cares about in the media. But in truth, all of these do matter. I mean, Trump needs to hold that. And then look at how light those two were in the iron range. Okay. Look at how
You missed your calling.
I missed my calling. Right. That's why I want the green screen back up, because I'm going to stand in front of it and show, and it will be much easier.
Just point at it.
Yes, much easier. But Barnes thinks he's probably going to take the 3 out of 4 in the iron range. He needs to make sure, of course, that Biden does, because things don't happen in a vacuum, right? So if Biden does take some of those rural counties that Trump won, and I know that I say rural, but they have voted Democrat before, and they could possibly again. All right, then that would obviously mean he's got to really run it up. So if those polls are right, I'll find out my own. I always believe my own data more than I believe anybody else's. If those are right in the Twin City burbs, he'll take it. And he takes 2 out of 4 of those Iron Range counties. That would be enough, because I mean, he lost it less than 2 points, folks. It was really close. Only couple. We're talking about that in Minnesota. It's not a big voting state. All right. We're talking about tens of thousands of votes. That could definitely change. I mean, that definitely could. All right. So, let me take a quick 30-second water break. It's 11:42. All right. Give me 30 seconds, folks. Be back. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I'm like, I need to take a 30-second break. When she opened the door, it was all the stuff they're whacking on out there, I guess, right?
Rich is allergic to the air.
I'm like allergic. Yeah, I've grown out of most of it. I was in the Army, and not a whole lot hurt me in the Army, aside from the actual injury. But I mean, nature, things in nature. But there's something in North Carolina, guys. He called it nutgrass, I think he said it was, and ragweed. I can't stand it. And when it gets cut, I'm like, ah! And when she opened the door, that's what happened. Yeah, the drink refreshes. All right, let's hit the next question.
All right. Last fan wants to know, how well does Kanye poll in Colorado and similar states?
Yeah, I don't know yet. We're going to find out. I mean, the bottom line is we, on our national poll, we included the Libertarian, we included the Green Party, and we included undecided someone else. And it was nothing. It was minimal. I am curious. There are a couple of states that will matter. Wisconsin, I think, threw him off now, right, Laura? They threw him off the ballot in Wisconsin. So, yeah, that won't matter. But we'll know that from the someone else category in the Rust Belt, okay? In Colorado, it honestly wasn't that much, guys.
All right. Technical wants to know, Trump pulled ads out of Iowa and Ohio.
That's a good question.
Because he's doing strong? You know what I mean?
Arizona threw Kanye off the ballot too, by the way. That just came across the wire about a couple hours ago. I didn't see it. Yeah, they're doing that on purpose because they don't want Kanye to take any battleground states. Biden could close to win. That's a good question. Just from the national polling, I can tell you, and Iowa and Ohio are in the Rust Belt poll anyway. So when we start that, we'll be on top of that soon. All right. The bottom line is, folks, the bottom line is I'm looking at the numbers. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think possibly Republicans could take every single one of those districts back in Ohio because did you see how close our generic ballot poll was?
Yeah.
It was 1 point. 1 point now. Democrats had maybe like a 6-point lead until we saw a shift. So the idea is basically that, Iowa would vote to the right of the nation, which means that Democrats could lose every single one they got in 2018. I just don't see it. I don't think Iowa or Ohio, and remember that Ohio bucked the trend in 2018 along with Florida. Okay. So it would be extremely, extremely difficult for them for Biden to take Ohio or Iowa. I don't even think they're close. I don't. Maybe a little closer because of the realignment. But I think that means Trump knows he's ahead.
All right. Michael Myers, he wants to know, What is the obstacle for a voter ID like every other Western country? Like, why can't we get it?
Because we are unique in the sense that's a great question. We are unique in the sense, Michael, that we have a major political party who relies on racial animosity to survive. No other Western country continues harping on these racial issues the way we do, because yes, it's true, we have a dark past. So does everyone else. Americans imported the idea of slavery. Colonists imported the idea of slavery. We weren't unique Americans, and then we instituted the institution of slavery. We imported it. We were a little late to get rid of it, but that was not even, if Americans knew real history, then maybe some of this would finally start to dissipate. But Democrats need a fake narrative to survive. And what I mean, a fake version of history. We did not go from the Civil War to Jim Crow. Okay? There was a vast period in between called Reconstruction, and even after, post-Reconstruction. Jim Crow wasn't until the 20th century where it really kicked into gear. After Reconstruction, when Lincoln was killed, there were weak presidents, there were corrupt presidents, and they allowed a rabid part of the abolitionist movement to begin to punish the South and persecute the South, take land from Southern landowners, rape women, okay? Rape Southern women. This happened. That led after, and Lincoln didn't want this to happen. He wanted to let them back to business as usual, okay? So they began persecuting them. The GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, their pension program was like the final straw. Anyway, the Southern voter at the state level for governors and legislators, there were black representatives before. They were being elected to office, black Americans who are now free men. That changed because of that mistreatment of the South. And then they turned to what we called redeemer governments. These were racists who were elected throughout state legislatures, governorships. Over time, they implemented what we now know as Jim Crow laws. We did not go from the Civil War to Jim Crow. And that's a real sad commentary that they have been hiding this history from us for many, many years. Why did they do that? Because they want you to think that the Democratic Party has always been their savior. They want you to forget about everything that happened up until the Civil Rights Movement. Why? Because what party were the Redeemer governments? The Democratic Party. The Democratic Party. And they want you to think there was some grand switch and flip. There wasn't. This is a fraud. There was always overlapping racists in both parties, overlapping abolitionists in both parties, but the Democratic Party was overwhelmingly the party of slavery, and I, in my own view, just believe it's a new version of slavery. It's a new version. So they rely on this, what's the word? Racial hucksters,
Yes.
to remain a national political force. All right? There is still slavery everywhere. All right? I mean, it's sad, but it's true. And until Democrats start to figure out how to campaign and win without needing to perpetuate racial hatred and animosity, balkanization in general, until they learn how to do that, it's never going to end. And it's sad because it's going to get worse, actually. Balkanization leads to blood. Always has. Always will. America is special, but it's not special in the sense that it will buck the trends and time-tested lessons of history. Right. Where you're going to end up killing each other again. And that's sad. I'm at the point now where I just admit it to myself. I just hope, I pray to God it happens maybe when my son is still young and, he doesn't have to deal with the mistakes of us being a bunch of cowards who couldn't face our own demons, Yes. Just passed it off to our next generation.
All right. Jay Perkin, interesting question, different. Why can a public figure file liable lawsuits when media completely makes up false stories?
And the most, because like politicians, they have sheltered themselves. They have just done it different. Actually, not that different. So just like the members of Congress they can go into the floor of the Senate or the House and slander the hell out of anybody. And they rely on bogus nonsense about the First Amendment to shelter them. The media allows it to shelter them. Like you can in some respects. So Nicholas Sandman, he got his slice, from CNN and others. But for the most part, these people are protected by the First Amendment. Sadly, they are the status quo. They're part of it, and they help perpetuate it. They're part of the construct to help perpetuate the status quo, and they sheltered themselves from. It's all to help maintain the status quo, and it's a real shame. It really is. There's not a whole lot you can do about it.
All right.
Well, there is.
Oh,
it's just
sorry.
Not with the laws we have now.
All right. G-Man and Honcho both have a similar question. G-Man said Rasmussen has Trump over 50%, and they want to know, is Trump peaking too soon?
Yeah, we're going to find out. That's the danger for Donald Trump, whether or not he peaks too soon. Right now, he's got Joe Biden playing his game, and Joe Biden is on the defense. You see Trump taking stuff out of Iowa and Ohio, while you see Biden putting stuff in Wisconsin and Michigan. And now he's going to have to defend Minnesota. That should tell you everything. Forget about what the media polls tell you. That tells you everything. The Biden camp raised a lot of money. They broke records, 300 plus million this month. But they needed to because two reasons. They needed to catch up to Donald Trump. His cash on hand was enormous. And their burn rate is too high. The burn rate is the rate at which a campaign spends money as opposed to how much they're bringing in. The Biden campaign's burn rate is a losing campaign burn rate. All right. However, there is so much hatred for Donald Trump. They're also like every big person is giving, like big money is going to Biden. Little money is going to Donald Trump. Even in Nevada, he's got a huge grassroots edge on Joe Biden. I'm stunned by that.
I'm stunned by you doing good with Nevada.
Yeah. I always said it right. Somebody threw me off. Anyway, so Donald Trump has Republicans always get outraised. Democrats always outraise Republicans. Donald Trump's fundraising is uniquely strong for any Republican candidate, even incumbent presidents. Democrats, John Kerry outraised George W. Bush. That's just the way it goes. Michael Dukakis outraged Herbert Walker Bush. It always happens because he was the incumbent party, but it always happens. Donald Trump is competitive because he has such a large grassroots support. He's able to go back over time. Joe, because the way his nomination worked, they actually made it easier on him. If the election was like a month or two later, Joe would run into problems because you can only keep raising so much from those people. They get maxed out. So he doesn't have a grassroots base like Donald Trump had. Not a big one. Not one as formidable. He's getting money from K Street, from Wall Street, from China, he just is, from foreign entities and people with interests in foreign entities, really is a better way to put that. All right. That's who wants Joe Biden to win. All right. And that's who's funding him and giving him $300 million. And Wall Street, those people who run Wall Street, they've always been liberal. That was always a fraud. They hedged their bets, but they overwhelmingly now donate to Democrats in the era of Donald Trump. All right. That is a concern for Trump, whether or not he peaked too early. But it really won't matter if he can keep Joe Biden on his heels and keep him on defense. The more Joe goes out there, the more the media is going to have to cover for his ridiculousness. This guy's not up for this. He needs the media to. Donald Trump's not running against Joe Biden. Donald Trump is running against corporate media, K Street, Wall Street. Joe Biden's nothing. He's nothing. He has to show up once in a while. He's like a generic alternative that you're supposed to vote for if you're a good person.
The perfect puppet.
If you're a bad person, you vote for Donald Trump. It means you're putting your own personal interests above your morality. That's their argument. That's it. I'm not kidding.
All right. Michael wants to know, is it true that one of the moderators is a Biden intern?
I don't know. I've only seen one moderator announced. Let me go to the Presidential Election Committee.
All right. While you figure that out.
Well, we only have a few minutes. Look, I can flatly tell you this anyway. There's always going to, it doesn't matter whether or not you can prove that or not. This will happen. This will happen. Chris Wallace is as fair as you're going to get. I don't know why Republicans even cop to this crap. Tucker Carlson should be a moderator for one of, that would be the equivalent of anyone else that they say. That would be the equivalent. Because they're all leftists. They're all incestuous. The relationship will be incestuous. It was under, remember Candy Crowley rescuing Barack Obama from Mitt Romney, devastating him over Benghazi. Remember, she lied for him in the debate. Mitt Romney was a coward, and he didn't. There is nobody in media that is not going to have some relationship to Democrats somewhere. Chuck Todd gives interns access to DNC parties, okay? I mean, I don't think some of you got to realize the reality of the situation. There is nobody. I mean, you really need, even if it's Anderson Cooper, who has been tapped before. The guy's a hack. He's a total hack. You would need somebody like Tucker Carlson to have the equivalent of that for Donald Trump. And that would be more fair. That would actually be more fair than Chris Wallace, who everybody knows loathes Donald Trump.
All right. Kevin Frazier asked a long time ago, what are the power rankings for the best current pollster, the top 3?
I don't like ranking pollsters. I mean, really, the only ones who have been at the statewide level, the only ones who have been right in the last couple of years, some of them, like Change is actually new, but in 2018, some of their results were whack, but some of them were better when others were not. All right. And in fact, their final in Montana, Tester, was right on the money. So it looks like Scully, Wallace, and Walker. Yeah. I mean, all liberals. All raging liberals. I mean, but that's the way it's going to be. So you have the days of Jim Garrett are over. Jim Lair. They're over. They're over. You have to fight all of them. And Joe Biden probably will get the debate questions. Somebody probably will give Joe Biden the debate questions. They lied about the man being a traitor to Russia. What else do you think is beneath them? Nothing. So you're going to have to really come to that realization. Trafalgar tends to, on some occasions, folks, overestimate Republicans. He'll get the actual result correctly, while others will not, he'll tend to overestimate. So in Rasmussen, as far as Rasmussen goes, some of the things, we just find different results. Like some of their black vote support, I think is not vote approval is a little high. But at least when I ask them for things, they give it to me. They never say no, that doesn't, no, you can't have this. This is a secret. Never. I can tell you who's not good. So Marist, who is on the top of their little scorecard, Marist has blown a lot of races. I mean, look, Claire McCaskill +3. Guys, she got creamed. All right. I mean, this was all a joke. Richard Cordray by 5. He got creamed. I mean, they were right nowhere. Fox News is among the worst polls. And Quinnipiac is probably the worst that the media loves to cite. They are probably the worst. I will dare you to go find me a Quinnipiac poll. Bring it back to me on Monday. The last time Quinnipiac polled a meaningful race in a battleground state and came within their own margin of error. Oh, wait. Correctly predicted the winner and came within the margin of error. You will be stunned how far you will have to go back to find that. All right? And they have missed. Let me just give you a hint. Skip over 2016 because they missed every single battleground state. Every single one. In 2018, they got one race that was in the news correctly, and it wasn't anywhere near the margin of error. Okay? And it was totally wrong. It wasn't near the reality or the margin of error. Just keep looking. Keep looking. It's going to be a while. All right?
All right. Sir wants to know, if economies have to have correction every so often, do you think COVID provided that cyclical correction?
That's a great.
We are on for years.
Sarah. That's a fantastic. Was that Sarah Rhodes?
Sir.
Oh, sir. Oh, no, I didn't know if that was Sarah Rhodes or not. I see her on Twitter sometimes. I like her because she's skeptical and she's like, hates both sides. Apparently, it looks equally. That's a great question because the talk was we were in the longest period of expansion since the mid 1800s. All right. Which was crazy. We beat the last longest one, which was Bill Clinton's economy. All right. In the 90s. And the talk was whether or not that the economy would slow down in the first quarter. And it looked like it may, but it was not going to be negative. We know that now from the data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Had not been for the stay-at-home orders, it would not have been negative. All right. And then we have now this blip. I am very curious. I don't know the answer to that. All I can say is the recovery is a V in most every areas. And in many of those areas, the recovery is stronger than pre-pandemic levels. That's true on the production side, in many of the in the ISM numbers, which are hard data, but both service and look at the service sector yesterday, and then in housing, especially way beyond pre-pandemic levels. That was like the last fourth cycle. I always talk about all four cycles economy burning on. Trump's was really a 3 of 4. The housing wasn't firing on all 4 cylinders until this year, the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. You could really see it start to pop, and it was about to. And then the stupid stay at home, hide from a virus, ridiculous nonsense, committed economic suicide. So I'm wondering myself if you're not right, sir, because or you're not onto something, because too many indicators are exceeding pre-pandemic levels. It's almost like with the jobs numbers, it's almost like it really has no choice but to drag the labor market back. And the only thing keeping the labor market from being as fast as the rest of them is the government policy, the stupid provision in the CARES Act. Donald Trump was smart politically to sign an executive order, which is why we had more people totally receiving pandemic benefits last week, because that included Trump's executive order. It was smart politically, and the Democrats can't challenge what we all know he probably does not have the power to do, but they would never dare, because, God, that would be political suicide. But it's bad policy because the jobs are out there. They're out there. To circle back to what they were saying before, yeah, I mean, I kind of like her, though. She's a concerned troll witch finder. I totally agree, but I kind of like her. And maybe she doesn't act in good faith, potentially. I don't know. I don't know her hard. I don't know her. I do like cynics. I do. I will say with Ann Selzer, I think Ann is honest, at least. However, I've always liked Ann's methodologies, her philosophy on polling. I don't know her that well, I mean, I don't know her at all personally, but allowing CNN to spike your poll because it showed a race you needed. CNN wanted Joe Biden to win the Iowa caucus. There were still pundits like Chris Cillizza and the rest of them who were cheerleading and saying that Joe Biden was going to win the Iowa caucuses. The polling in the Democratic primary was abysmal. It was horrible. And so were the exit polls, by the way. So take that into consideration when Fox News tells you how well they perfected their voter analysis, and look at how well they did in 2018. They did not do well in the primary. All right. Maine, Fox, boy, you blew that one. Minnesota, oh my, that was the one. Maine, which you never heard about, was among the worst exit polls / voter analysis calls I have ever seen in my life. That's how bad it was. Worse than Hart in New Hampshire in the 80s. Worse. I mean, it was bad. There was no statistical way Bernie Sanders could lose the state of Maine. And he did. So allowing, though, very disappointing to see her allow CNN to spike that poll. The reason that they gave for spiking the poll was ludicrous. There was not a no way out scenario. So what I mean by that is how much that woman could have collected, that one interviewer could have collected over less than a day, is so minimal, so nil, so nothing. They could have simply removed her responses from the sample and continued to poll. There has been times where like, oh crap, that person got that question a little bit different, right? Or that mode was asking the question a little bit different. How many do we have? 80 responses. We can't use them. We have to continue to poll. That happens. Even Murray at Monmouth did a thread explaining why. The reason for spiking that poll was ludicrous. So I'm sorry. But after that, my eyebrow goes up now. I'm sorry. And I hate to say that because Laura will tell you, I mean, knowing the work Ann Seltzer has done over many years, she was actually one of my
Figures.
Yeah. It was very disappointing because anyone who is a pollster will tell you something else was going on there. It's not. It's bogus. They lied to you. They spiked that poll because Joe Biden was in 4th place. End of story. All right. Sorry.
All right. So Sadie has a question. She wants to know any likelihood of another stimulus check, or has that ship sailed?
Democrats are not going to allow you to get a stimulus check before the election. They have decided that they do not want you to have economic relief before the election because they think that it'll hurt Donald Trump more than them.
Make you suffer.
That is the cold, hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
And if Donald Trump finds a way to appropriate more money, he really had this risk to take. Can I use some appropriations from, really took some from DHS to have the Labor Department extend people's benefits? It was either that or more stimulus. And he wants to give more stimulus. He does. So do Republicans. But Democrats are committed to giving poison pills to sink it because they don't want you to have it. All right, one more, dear, because I'm going to be late for my meeting here.
All right. Simple Sandman wants to know, census is basically used for redistricting.
Can be.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and not only and not basically, but yeah, it can be. I mean, not can be.
Okay.
It is. They'll take the census numbers to write these maps out. All right. So yeah, that's absolutely one of the reasons why it's very important to have an accurate census, which of course, again, California would not have the power that it has if they didn't count illegal immigrants. It's just true. I mean, it would be powerful. It just wouldn't be as powerful. All right. But yeah, that's it.
Jeff.
All right.
Oh, well,
Oh no, I gotta go to my. I gotta go to the meeting.
Interesting one.
I gotta go to my meeting. I gotta go. I do. It's 12:08. They want me to poll. You guys want me to poll, right? It's 12:08. I gave 10
Friday.
guys. It's 10. Yeah, but it's 10 after 12. I already went. It's
I got your question.
She's got it though. She's got it. All right. We'll answer more on Monday. I promise. All right. Maybe we'll do a question thing on for like a half an hour on the weekend where overflow questions.
How about that?
Or
I
something.
give you a list of all the questions you've missed, and then you just answer them.
Yeah,
back
like
to back
a
to back
lightning
to back.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We could do that. Let's work on that. All right, guys. That sound cool? Maybe be like a half an hour or even 20 minutes. Doesn't have to be long.
No,
just pop on. Like, look, I forgot these questions on Friday. You ready? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, we'll see how long that takes.
She writes them down, the ones I miss. I'm not kidding. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter right here at People's_Pundit on Twitter. You absolutely lemon minty can send questions to Laura and I.
Yeah,
Send them to Laura. I answer throughout the day. If you want to try to send it to me, it's just that stupid bar goes now. That's like a downside. But yeah, you can send it. You can send it to Laura. All right. Send it to Laura at Laura Bass. She'll do it. All right. You'll see hers is on my profile. All right. And then, yep. So don't forget to like the page on Facebook, folks. Facebook. We got to get those likes up. We can get a decent, respectable like on Facebook. And if you want to, by the way, too, definitely like Big Data Poll at Big Data Poll. You will get a lot more information about the polls we conduct when we do. So the poor transparency checklist, the actual questionnaire itself. What did we ask people? How did we ask them? How was it designed? You can get all that because we'll push it out on Facebook from now on. All right. And then, of course, like the page People's Pundit Daily on, or subscribe to the page People's Pundit Daily on YouTube, the channel, the sponsor of the show, and hit the notification bell. That'll let you know right before we're about to go live. All right. Which you don't want to miss. All right. And ultimately, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD, which you could do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right. All the best, folks. Be safe over the weekend. All right. And we'll see you back on Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to watch What Are the Odds with Barnes and Barris at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday. All right, folks. All the best. Be safe.
Bye, guys.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back. before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna